And not just the fact that he was on the mountain receiving the 10 Commandments, I'm talking about the movie 10 Commandments. Some of you remember that movie. He's holding that, got a little rod and the waters part and all that. But when you think about Moses, he is probably arguably the most important man, especially in the Old Testament, perhaps in the entire history of the world, aside from Jesus Christ. He was the emancipator and lawgiver for the entire nation of Israel. He was a scholar, he was a soldier, he was a statesman. Heaven sent him back to earth so that he was on the Mount of Transfiguration with Elijah and Jesus. And he was the writer, actually he wrote the first song that's in the Bible, the first song that Moses wrote that. His name is mentioned 784 times in the Bible. He is arguably, again, one of the most important men that has ever lived in the history of the world. And how do we account for his greatness? Well, there are probably several factors that tie into why Moses was the man he was, but all of them probably go back to one key component, and that is his mother. And his mother's name was Jochebed. So as I'm preparing for Mother's Day sermon, and we have been talking out of Exodus a little bit the past couple of Sundays already, Jochebed just came to my mind. And I remembered in my library, behind the bookcases behind me, I've got a book entitled All the Women of the Bible. So I thought, what a great place to start to study Jochebed so that I can research and get some materials going. Because if the book says all the women in the Bible, surely all the women in the Bible are in this book. Would you not think so? Au contraire. As I opened up the table of contents, and it's in alphabetical order, there's Abigail. What a great start. And I thought this is going to be wonderful. Abigail is followed by Anna. Then they get into the D's. There's Deborah, there's Delilah, then there's Elizabeth, then there's Esther, then Eve. Eve has 2 chapters. She is so important, she has 2 chapters. E, I'm getting close to the J's. So Herodias, then here's the J's. Here we are, Jael, Jehosheba, Jephthah's daughter, Jezebel. Jezebel's in the book. And the next one is Lot's daughters. Well, wait a second, that's in an L, Jochebed is a J. Maybe there's not on the appendix in the back, there's a special chapter. No. All the women in the Bible, there is not a chapter in here on Jochebed. I am writing the author, I am writing the publisher for the disclaimer notice. If it says all the women in the Bible, should not all the women in the Bible be in the book? Especially the mother of what is arguably, again, one of the greatest men to ever live. Here is our first life lesson this morning, ladies. You may not make it in the book. There may not be a chapter on you. You may feel unseen, unheard, unloved, unappreciated, but just like Jochebed, you're doing a fantastic job with your family and your children. And whether it gets printed or publicized or not, God sees, God honors, and God knows. So for every unseen, unforgotten, unassuming mom in the world and watching by live stream and in this room today, know that God keeps good records. And whether you make it in a book or not, we are appreciative of the work that you have done as a mom today. Very simply, what did Jochebed do? Jochebed had Moses, Jochebed hid Moses, and Jochebed held Moses. If you have your Bibles or smartphones or tablets, we're going to go to Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. Jochebed had him. Exodus chapter 1, beginning with verse 15. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Sapphira and Puah, when you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it's a boy, kill him, but if it's a girl, let her live. Now, the background behind this story is this. Generations ago, Joseph, one of the patriarchs of the nation of Israel, saves Egypt from starvation. He ascends to become vice president of the nation, but he dies, that Pharaoh dies, generations pass, and up comes the Pharaoh who didn't remember what Joseph had done for the nation of Egypt. So Egypt now is afraid of the Israelites because they are increasing in number, so they're going to enslave them. And Israel will be slaves in Egypt for 400 years, treated mercilessly. And now at this point in time, as their numbers begin to grow, Pharaoh says, if we have an enemy attack us, they may get the Israelites to side with them since there's so many of them. So let's kill all the male children as soon as they are born. That is the situation, that is the scenario we pick up in Exodus chapter 1. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all the people. Every boy that is born, you must throw him into the Nile, but let every girl live. Few women have ever raised a family in more difficult circumstances. The fact that Jochebed gives birth and raises a Moses, an Aaron, and a Miriam, the other children in that family, and she did so in a slave hut along the Nile River, speaks to some wonderful influence that she had on the lives of her children. Jochebed believed that God was greater than Pharaoh, that Satan was no match for the Holy Spirit, and greater is he that lives within you than he that lives within the world. So she had Moses. She was not about to allow the voice of the world to discourage her from fulfilling God's will. And thank God she did have Moses. The law given through Moses and every piece of sane legislation that happens in the world today in every nation has its foundation in the law that Moses gave us through the 10 Commandments. The first 5 books of the Bible are authored by Moses. Had it not been for Jochebed who had Moses, we would not have the first 5 books of the Bible, which lay the foundation for the other 61 books of the Bible, which encourage us, inspire us, and inform us, and give us a doctrine that is good enough to get us through the pearly gates of heaven. Without Moses, none of that would have happened. It took a brave woman to have Moses, and it takes a brave woman to give birth today. You ever heard anybody say, I'm so worried about bringing a child into this world today, the kinds of times that we live in? And I can understand at a surface level why somebody would struggle with that thought. When you read the news and you see what's going on, my heavens, why in the world would we want to bring a child into this world? But moms especially, and dads and families, let me tell you, God is in control. God is a providential God. And every child that is born, that child is born for such a time as this. The children that you saw up there, Amanda and Jonathan's children, all the children in the nursery and the ones that we are about to have walk around here, God ordained them to be born in this day and time. They're not here by mistake. And they are the ones that God has placed their hands on them, and they will be the emancipators. They will be the deliverers. They were the ones that will rise up with the voice of God and the power of strength in their minds and their bodies, and they will be the ones that will proclaim the good news of the gospel. They will be the ones to turn things around. This is why there is such an attack on our children over the past few decades. This is why abortion has reached the pinnacle that it has, because Satan has not changed his tactics in 4,000 years. Knowing that a deliverer is coming, what is the first thing we do? Attack the children. That's what Satan did 4,000 years ago. That's what he's doing today. So don't be afraid of bringing a child into this world today. Make sure you give every effort to raise that child up in the admonition and nurture of the Lord, so that when they are old enough, they walk out into this dark world with the light of Jesus Christ. God is in control, and we may not be throwing our children into a crocodile-infested river like the Nile River physically, but spiritually and socially, this world can be a scary and a deadly place. Pharaoh meant for the Nile River to be Moses' grave, but God used it for Moses' salvation. Moms, hang in there today. What looks like destruction to your child right now may be the very thing that turns and catapults them to their destiny. The same thing that Satan intended for destruction, God can turn it for good. Hebrews chapter 11, by faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child. Anybody in this room have an ordinary child? Did you give birth to an ordinary child, a plain child? You know, Susan and I, at one point in time, as we were talking about names for our children, I'm being born and bred Texican. I wanted to name my children after the towns in Texas: Dallas, Austin, and I suggested Plano. Because at that point in time, the TV show Dallas was very popular, and the ranch was in the Plano, Texas, and she said, Plano White is not going to work for a name of one of our children. So we didn't do that. because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. The king's wrath is something to be reckoned with, but they feared God more. And because she feared God more, she not only had Moses, she hid Moses. Exodus 2. Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman. By the way, the name Jochebed is not even found in Exodus. As we read about the mother who gives birth to Moses, her name is not even mentioned. She is just simply a Levite woman. And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him, coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it along the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. As long as they could, Jochebed and Amram shielded and protected their baby from the destructive influences and the powers of their world. Moms and dads, we need to do that same thing today. We need to shield our children. To me, one of the most tragic things that happens in the world today is that our children lose their innocence too soon. Hey, they're going to get out there, you need to listen. No. All those things and all the reasoning out there, I have an admonition and a calling from God to protect my children from the things of the world as long as I can, to shield them. We need to be cognizant and aware of what comes into our homes when the children are in the room via TV or internet or computer. We need to be considerate about who they're relating with in schools that are going, and what's going on in school and things happening in their lives. We need to do the proper things that we can do to hide them, to shield them from the things in this world that would try to destroy them. Young people in the room, young people watching my live stream are not going to be real happy with me for the next few minutes, but here goes. I just don't care. Your child does not need a cell phone until they need a cell phone. Okay? And just because somebody else has one doesn't mean they need one. When they get into extracurricular school activities, they're staying late, and you're supposed to pick them up, you're running late, then they need one. But other than that, they don't need one until they need one. Second thing, when you do give them a cell phone, you charge it up at night in your bedroom. I have just been around the block too long and too many times. I've seen too many tragic things happen innocently, that somebody is looking to take advantage of and abuse your child because of the contact they can make through social media on that phone. Put the computer in the living room so everybody in the house can see what's on the computer screen at that point in time. I know that sounds old-fashioned, it sounds wrong, but we got to protect our kids. There's an element out there in this world who wants to destroy them, who wants to rob the peace from their mind and take them from us at an earlier age, as early as they can. But we need to hide them and protect them from the things of the world. They will discover the ways of the world soon enough. Until then, protect them, hide them. Imagine the conversation between Amram and Jochebed. You are not throwing my baby in that river. Honey, I agree with you. That's not going to happen, but what are we going to do? I mean, this has been a couple of weeks now. People out there knew you were pregnant. I mean, how much longer can we hide the cries of this child? His cries are getting louder and louder. What are we going to do? Maybe for a little bit of a length of a time, we can try to dress him up like a girl, and all these things are going through their mind. They're trying to think through human reasoning. How can we accomplish this? How can we increase this task? How do you save somebody who has a death sentence attached to their life? I would just like to think that Amram and Jochebed pulled back on their memory of what they knew of what God's working was. And they remembered sometime back they heard the story of Noah and the ark. And there was no way out. The world was going to be destroyed, but God was going to protect his children. God was going to protect his people. So they built a little ark, and they placed their child in the ark and put him into the trust and the love and the hope that God would take care of him. And they set that ark adrift on the Nile River. And his older sister Miriam follows along the side to see what's going to happen with it. Can I tell you, every Jochebed needs a Miriam. Every Jochebed needs somebody who will work on the wings, who will work silently. There is a ministry of silence and there is a ministry of thunder. And ladies, let me tell you, in every life, you need to have that voice of thunder and you need to have that voice of silence. The one who is just there to watch over, to help you. And then when the right time came, Miriam stepped in. We have to live in community. We have to come, whenever the vaccines are enough out there and everybody's comfortable going back to life groups, you need to attach yourself to a life group. You need to live in community. You need to have that Jochebed in your life. You need to have that Miriam in your life. So when you are hiding that child, this is what's going to happen. There's going to be that combination of somebody in your heart and your life that's going to do that. So I can try to imagine what in the world was going on in Jochebed's mind. Most of you know I was in education for 20 years. 4 or 5 of those years was on an elementary campus. The first day of school for kindergarten or first grade, we had to tell every teacher, every aide, go out there, grab that child from mom, and pull them into the classroom. The first time away from home, pulling on mom's heartstring. I'm turning my baby away for the first time. I'm not going to see him for another 6 hours. Who is this person I've never met before that is their teacher? You know what, moms, you know what you went through the first time you said, imagine you're putting your child in a crocodile-infested Nile River right now, the first time your baby is away from you. She hid him for as long as she could. Then God performs a miracle, and Jochebed still gets to hold him. Let's pick the story up. Hebrews chapter 1 tells us this. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child. They were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Ooh, how did that happen? We'll talk about that. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the cause of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. As you turn on the news today, as you pick up newspapers and magazines, there is another history of our nation that you will not find written on the ink-stained pages of a newspaper. You will not find it in the pages of a magazine. It will not be reported on the 24/7 news channels. The history of our nation is being written in the homes where moms are watching over their children, praying over their children. It's an unwritten history. It's never going to make the news, never going to make the newspaper, but it's shaping the course of a nation. It's shaping the course of history because one mom, by another mom, by another mom, are raising their children up in the admonition and nurture of the Lord, and that will change a nation. She had him, she hid him, now she holds him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile River to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying and felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Stop right there. She knows. I don't know if it was the blanket he was wrapped in. I don't know if it was the hue of his skin color was just a little bit different, but somehow she knew this was a Hebrew baby. She knew the next step is to send that baby back into the river without the protection of the basket. She knew what was supposed to happen. She was supposed to drown that child. Then his sister, Miriam, the one on the sidelines, the one who was silent, the one who was just out in the wings, asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him, that woman, Jochebed. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." The best screenwriters in Hollywood, the best writers of Broadway productions could not have come up with a greater storyline. For whatever reason, when the basket is open, the child is crying. Maybe some of the water from the Nile sinked in. Maybe it's wet. Maybe he's wet from his diaper. Maybe they opened it up and the sunlight caught him. Maybe it's the strange voices. For whatever reason, he is crying. And the cries of that child get the attention of the most powerful woman in the world. And that verse there, what verse is? Let me put my glasses on and I'll tell you. Verse 6 is a key point in the history of the world. God in his providence puts this woman bathing at just the same time this basket is floating down the Nile River and passes by. And in that moment, the entire destiny of an empire is changed, and the entire history of the world is changed, because a child who was supposed to have been drowned in the Nile River is now being pulled out and rescued by the most powerful woman in the nation at that point in time. Not only is the life of the child saved, not only is the life of the child saved, but he is now put in a position to where he can learn the ways of Egypt and change all the things that's going to happen in the world. Here is this destiny being changed right here. Every Jochebed needs a Miriam to follow along and to be there at that right time. We need watchers as much as we need workers. For this to happen, again, we've got to live in that community. But Miriam steps up at just the right time to be able to arrange for Jochebed, the Jewish mother of the baby who was supposed to have been thrown in the Nile River and drowned. The baby is now rescued. Now that child who is supposed to be dead, the enemy wanted him dead, and the very enemy who wanted him dead is now going to be paying his mother to take care of him in his house. All because a woman said, I'm not afraid of the edict of the king. I will have this child, I will hide this child, and I will hold this child. And for as long as she had him, for the number of years that it took in that culture, that time to wean that child, Jochebed held him. And even probably when he couldn't understand, she whispered in his ears the stories of Genesis. Let me tell you about what Joseph did. Let me tell you what Adam and Eve, let me tell you how these things transpired. Let me tell you the story of Joseph, how he saved us, and we are here today. Every chance she got, she poured into him. Mom, Dad, every chance you get, granddad, grandma, every chance you get, pour into the life of that child. Don't depend on Pastor Jonathan and Amanda to do it for you. Don't depend on Pastor Lane and Jolie to do it for you. Don't depend on the nurseries and the people who all volunteer in children's church to do that for you. That falls on your responsibility. You had that child. You have been hiding that child. Now you hold that child close to your heart and you tell them the things of God, and just sit back and watch what your child, your grandchild will do over the course of history. You don't have to be in a book. Your name doesn't have to be in there. You may think you are a forgotten mom today, but God knows. And he has anointed you and equipped you and put you in the right place to do exactly what he wants you to do with your children and your grandchildren. Would you stand with me?